Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Channeling, the mediums, the psychics, mediumship, necromancy, psychic spiritualism. See also fortune telling, divination, the clairvoyance. See also telepathy. Contact Report 007.
On the whole, however, there are few human beings who can enter into connection with the deceased, as you say. Although you have large spiritualistic circles on the earth, these are often nothing more than deception. Many mediums are only quite good actors and indulge the desires of their acting drives. A fact that, unfortunately, can only be proven by Earth humans with great difficulty. But on the other hand, there are also those mediums who imagine tremendous things and then imitate these in a trance state in all perfection, whereby a deception takes place again. In this process, their power of imagination often extends so far that they can tell factual things of other human beings from the past or the future, and can even imitate their voices in all perfection. But also, not to be forgotten are those mediums who are exploited by some beings of other dimensions just for fun or maliciously. There are actually only very few real mediums, and they are mostly almost unheard of. But those who are real mediums are silent about it and do not make a fuss about it.
Contact Report 023.
Aha, but how is it now, with very high spirit beings who get in touch with the human beings of Earth?
I have already given you information about this once, because many human beings on the earth claim completely wrongly that they are addressed inspiratively, etc., by high spirit forms. However, their claims are based only on self-deception or deliberate lies. They know inspiration only from hearsay, but they do not know the symptoms in any way. But further, I also already explained to you that no spiritually higher forms of life have come into contact with earthly human beings in the course of the last 2,000 years, and so also have not transmitted any things of any form to them. Since 2,000 years, you are the first earthly human form, which has been and still is inspired by a high spiritual form. The circumstances and form of the inspiration phenomenon are known to you, so you can always judge when it is an inspiration and when it is not. Some human beings are to be praised for having written good words for the citizens of the earth, even if they have succumbed to self-deceptions. But in their sense, to draw the attention of the human beings of earth to the way of the creation and to change their whole attitude through this, their works are good, insofar as they do not fall into religious paths and false teachings. So although these human beings have succumbed and always will succumb to self-delusions in terms of inspirational inspiration, they have the value of bringing many of them partially acceptable works. In honesty, however, they should nevertheless declare that these works originate from their own thought processes and have no inspirational backgrounds.
Contact Report 025.
What about spiritism? Should we talk to the dead, and is that even possible? I have my own particular view on this, but I do not want to tell you it now. Please explain to me what this is all about, because we have had some discussions about it recently.
Basically, you Earth humans are very much spiritualistic, but very amateurish and without any appreciable knowledge or success. But more than 99.7% of so-called spiritualist sessions are based on fraud, self-deception, and charlatanry. So wrong things are consciously claimed and underlined by magic tricks and so on. In very, very many cases, there is also self-deception, because the spiritualists are of the wrong opinion that other worldly beings or deceased people would answer them. medium of this kind is very susceptible to telepathic vibrations of the subconsciousness, and through this ability, taps other people's subconsciousness or storage banks as they experience things that are of the future or past. Uninitiated and ignorant people thus believe that the medium actually has psychic abilities. People are therefore very often amazed when such acts tell them things about themselves or their relatives and about other people whom they themselves had long forgotten and were no longer able to remember. This form of alleged spiritism awakens an evil self-delusion in the medium, which also includes the accompanying persons. Every reality is lost. Such false forms are unfortunately very common and cannot be contained in a short time. Unfortunately, there would never be enough time if I wanted to treat all the different forms of spiritism. If I had to be content with an explanation of the real factor, the ignorant and illogical human should neither practice a simple necromancy nor real spiritism. These things are, firstly, psychologically and consciously very dangerous for the practitioners, because confusions of consciousness can arise, and secondly, they are deceived by all kinds of possibilities, but not by the dead or exploited for jokes. A deceased life form, in the form of the overall consciousness block, possesses in the sphere beyond only the knowledge that it has collected in the material world. If it could then be called from the material world, then it would only be able to discuss and tell what it has just learned in the material world. In particular, the most serious are the points of religious dogma and madness, which allegedly always make deceased life forms visible or audible in the foreground, and thereby mislead the still living evil. This is because delusional religious facts mostly play a dominant role in people's material thinking in their lives. Many deceased persons would not agree with an invocation of their being and would therefore maliciously cheat the still living if they were called. Many would make bad jokes and prophesy wrong things, which could then perhaps also actually apply, because the ignorant living would believe in it and would draw the events as with a magnet. But now there is still the form of true spiritism, the knowledge of which, however, only 4 people on the earth are capable of, who are also silent about their abilities. In this form, it is not those who have died who are called upon, but beings of higher forms, and also beings of other spheres. And since these are often very far developed in consciousness-based abilities, they have also laid down many false teachings and have become wise. And these forms of spirits and beings are the only ones that truthfully answer all questions of the living and do not deceive or joke. The fundamental truth of spiritism in the form of invocation of the dead, etc., is that it would be undesirable, first and foremost, for the deceased and would not be of any use to the living, but only bad. This is the case, as I said, when it concerns the applied spiritism of the untrue form. Human beings should therefore never have the audacity to summon the dead, because this is pure nonsense and can be damaging to consciousness. A great deal of misery and distress could already be solved in your world by it alone if you would refrain from this evil and misleading false spiritism. Of value is only the spiritism of higher form, in which no dead but higher spiritual spheres or higher beings can be invoked and questioned. But as already said, at the moment, there are only 4 people on your earth who are capable of such action. In your so-called pan-European area, however, only one of these 4 real experts currently lives, and I do not have the right to name them.
Contact Report 031.
That therefore any earth human claims are in every respect only evil deception and lies when it is said that earth humans are in communicative contact, etc., with high spiritual planes goes without saying. Earth humans, with their present state of material consciousness, are only able to make contact with beings of the same number of vibrations in this form and under certain circumstances to bring about communication. This means that an Earth human being can therefore only come into contact with beings who correspond approximately to the same evolutionary state of the Earth human being. This means a safeguarding by the creative laws, which thereby guarantee that a life form never acquires more knowledge than may be assigned to it in terms of evolution. So this is also the case with Earth humans. If the fraudulent statements of earthly mediums, who allegedly want to have contacts with the beyond, and the fraudulent statements of those who are allegedly in contact with high spirit forms were true, then a catastrophe would have destroyed the earth with explosive gay vault long ago and annihilated all earthly humanity. Through such contacts, Earth humans would have risen quite suddenly and unprepared to undreamt of heights in every respect and destroyed everything. Through the high spiritual planes, Earth humans would have been imparted such great secrets of the most varied powers and such a high knowledge, which the whole of Earth humans would never have been able to master. By safeguarding the creative laws that a life form can only ever establish contact and possibly communicate with life forms with the same atomic number of their own swinging waves, such occurrences are prevented.
Contact Report 034.
Recently, that is to say yesterday, I was confronted with something that I would like to clear up. It is a medium who is concerning himself with spiritistic matters. It would be very convenient for me if you could find out what this medium is all about. Is that possible for you?
Sure, I could do that, but you yourself are as well versed in these things as I am, thus you can find out for yourself. Already Sifath and Asket taught you these matters and initiated you into the necessary facts. So you know the possibilities of finding the truth, and therefore you do not need my help.
But I will hardly have the possibility to move in the circle of this medium.
So you know a trusted person from this group. Teach them on a confidential basis and offer them the opportunity to clarify the necessary facts themselves.
I can do that. That's good advice. But the question is whether I can tell the person I trust the formula for finding the truth, because this was so strictly forbidden to me by Sfath as well as by Asket. Then I may tell her the formula under the seal of absolute secrecy?
Sure, that's how I explained it to you.
I just wanted to be sure. But what about the personal inspection?
You know that this is always very good. But on the other hand, it doesn't always bring out the truth through circumstances, you know. Well, but do it anyway. But first and foremost, rely on the formula, because it is creationally based and of absolute infallibility.
I know. But then I have another question. In the same connection with the medium, there is a fact concerning Arahat Athersata. It was explained to me that the medium was questioned by its circle about the existence or truth of Arahat Athersata, whereupon the other side allegedly spoke through the medium about the actual existence of Arahat Athersata, if I understood that correctly. But the answers of the medium are always very unclear and they don't really answer the questions. Everything is always expressed so mutably that nothing concrete becomes recognizable and thousands of possibilities can apply. What do you say?
Neither the medium nor the other worldly beings, if such should really be in the game, which is not only to doubt, but impossible, which is also according to your own knowledge with absolute certainty like that, could give any information about Arahat Athersata to any human being. This level has already entered the stage of the first being and is of purely spiritual form. Not even I am able to connect with this level. This is reserved solely for our High Council, which is already half spiritual. It would therefore be absolutely impossible for an Earth human to be able to connect with Arahat Athersata or even to find out any facts about its existence. Not even an inkling of its existence could an Earth human being bring forth. But the facts also lie in consideration of alleged otherworldly forms of life, if they are forms of that which is still bound to material bodies. Therefore, if any things are said about Arahat Athersata, from this world or from the supposed hereafter, whereby the latter is fictitious without the slightest doubt, then such statements and assertions or utterances, etc., simply put, only correspond to untruth and thus to lies. You are informed about the forms of the different beings, so you also know the secret of the declaration of manifestation, which must be carried out within a set pattern by every being that identifies itself with a material form of life. This secret is unknown to the uninitiated, and it is a good thing, because it gives insiders certain absolute clues when lies, cheating, and deception are committed.
Contact Report 039.
But other human beings can, nevertheless, also receive ongoing transmissions without being exhausted by it.
You know very well that this is not the case, and that the majority of the so-called mediums truly have no contacts at all with such life forms or even other dimensioned life forms, and that some of them are just subject to a self-deception or are quite consciously and deceitfully led to believe such contacts. There are only very few real contacts with higher levels, and valuable transmissions are even rarer. But Earth humans, who could have actual contacts in this form with other life forms and higher spirit levels, would not just be able to pursue communication according to their liking and indefinitely because their powers would be very strongly diminished by these contacts. So these would have to be renewed for every new contact, which would often take many weeks or even several months. They would never be able to bear such power achievements as they are demanded of you, for they would surely die in complete exhaustion.
Contact Report 048.
But now I have a question concerning contact with the afterlife. Should the human deal with it or not?
Your question is very illogical. You know that the Earth human should not under any circumstances deal with this nonsense, even if certain preconditions could ever require such illogical actions.
Contact Report 076 Manara. And there are still too many misleading and delusional forms of thought imprinted in the individual. Without being willing to neutralize them in order to accept the truth alone, for delusional belief and misleading falsehoods tempt the seekers and researchers to take unreal and false paths. Even in some there is still too much thought and the will to be more than others. This partly because they erroneously assume that they are higher in knowledge than others, which in truth is wrong and corresponds to self-deception. But also because they believe themselves imaginatively, or by the lying false statements of mediums to have been allegedly great, or otherwise important personalities in earlier lives. Contact Report 081.
Too bad. Now for the parapsychologists, esotericists and other delusionists. Fantasts and idiots, another world is ruined again. But if not everything deceives me very much, then these jerks will soon find a suitable replacement. Only perhaps 1,000 times more stupid, more primitive and crazier than what was so far.
This will be the case, for the stupidity of the earthly man still knows no bounds, and especially not of the newest and probably so far most stupid religion that ever dominated the earthly humans, namely the parapsychology of sectarian and delusional form.
That sounds damn strange from you, Ptah. It almost seems to me as if you are very depressed and therefore speak angrily.
That is the case. But it is not surprising when I find out again and again that the human being on earth apparently tries, by all means, to keep the truth quiet and to step into the mud with insane means like spiritualism and the whole sentence of the sectarian idiocy of religious parapsychology, the cult religions and cruel lies of all kinds. The worst of all being to claim that contacts with us or other intelligences and spirit forms living outside of the earth, who supposedly belong to us, would be maintained, although of all such lying claims hardly one is true, because all are truly only lies.
Contact Report 082.
Otherwise, she also endangers this by her wrong actions in relation to her ritual acts with regard to her spiritualistic faith and participation in such delusional ritual acts, which have already been made clear several times. As already explained in our last contact, she thereby promotes the ever-increasing danger that negative swinging waves become free, which are analyzed by negative forces and transformed to the detriment of the group. It is not that Margaret herself pushes these vibrations out from herself, but that the medium unconsciously frees and radiates data for Margaret from her subconscious, which she, Margaret, does not allow in a meaningful and correct manner. Seances with a medium are therefore extremely dangerous for her because they reveal and broadcast secrets that should remain secrets. The truth is that Margret's various seances over the last 3 months have released and radiated secrets from her subconscious by the medium that referred to the Sohar Center Meditation Center at the Simya Se Silver Star Center. These negative vibrations in this sense were located and analyzed by the Giza intelligences, who were only then informed about the emergence of the center. But she lets herself be deceived in very evil form, and her secrets are torn away, which is very harmful for everyone. She is well aware that the information and data, etc., given to her by the medium are torn from her own subconscious by the medium through connection. But nevertheless, she does not change her actions and thus endangers all of our tasks. The seeming goodness of the medium is deceptive, for the action rests in false values and leads to delusion and madness.
Contact Report 222.
The long and short of it, to my knowledge, the hearing of voices concerns a form of schizophrenia, through which those who are afflicted by it hear a voice or multiple voices in their heads or something.
That is also of correctness. With the hearing of voices, it concerns a form of schizophrenia, through which acoustic hallucinations are produced in the form of a voice or even several human voices, animal sounds or thing-related tones, which are heard by the people afflicted by this form of schizophrenia in their consciousnesses, because it has fallen to a schizophrenic disorder. Those who are afflicted by this form of schizophrenia suppose to be listeners of conversations or to perceive any other sounds, noises, tones, or even music in an allegedly real form. In severe cases of this type of schizophrenia, even alleged dialogues occur between the hallucinatory voices and schizophrenic people, which also often leads to the fact that those afflicted by this disease of consciousness respond to alleged commands of the hallucinatory voices and carry out and commit actions and deeds that aren't comprehensible for normally healthy people. Thus, homicides of this kind appear not infrequently in a simple or serial form because the murder or killing of humans and animals or the destruction of pictures and articles, etc., are ordered by the alleged hallucinatory communication of the putative hallucinatory voices. An occurrence through which confused, sick, deranged, and illogical as well as reason-poor thinking is caused with this form of schizophrenia in certain respects. A condition that doesn't have to be permanently present, but which can also only appear sporadically. Those afflicted by this may even be people of good education, because the schizophrenia exhibits a split consciousness, which is determined not by the intelligence, but by hallucinations and thus by an impairment of consciousness or by a pathological change in the state of consciousness. In harmless cases, the form of schizophrenia of the hearing of voices appears with the so-called dead speakers, ghost speakers, otherworld speakers, and extraterrestrial speakers who, from time to time, through inner voices, even through the hearing of voices, supposedly accept that they would hear voices of the dead, ghosts, demons, otherworldly ones, and extraterrestrials, and would even communicate with these. On Earth, you call such people mediums, necromancers, and channelers, etc., but who, as explained, truly only have inner voices and believe that they would receive commands or messages from these and even communicate with them. Another form of this illness of consciousness also causes putative telepathic voices, through unrealistic forms of thought and beliefs, by what means those afflicted by this illness believe that they would stand in telepathic connection with any beings of a worldly, otherworldly, or other-dimensioned or extraterrestrial form. Those afflicted by these forms of delusion believe that their delusions are real. Moreover, on the outside, they appear completely normal to their fellow human beings, who judge the false assertions of the schizophrenics as given and, thus, classify those who are sick in consciousness as completely normal, which, as a rule, is also typical of the professionals, such as psychologists and psychiatrists, who can also be deceived just like the layman.
Contact Report 231.
Increasingly, many will claim through lies and deceit that they are in personal or telepathic contact with Simyase, with Ptah, with me, or with others of our races, as well as with higher spirit forms of our planes, in personal or telepathic as well as channeling contact. But everything will only be lies, deceit and dizziness, because no human being on earth apart from you will be able to come into any kind of contact with us, just as we will only be able to come into contact with you for which you know the reasons.
Contact Report 233.
So all those lying and swindling Earth humans who maintain that they would have contact with Ashtar Sharan are already punished by this fact. These swindlers, liars, and deceivers still continue on. However, because in the mentioned deceitful writings, it is even maintained that Emmanuel, also known as Jesus Christ, would personally transmit messages to the swindlers and deceivers, particularly to the lying person Dharma and such. But this also only corresponds to an incredibly insolent lie, as well as a swindle and deception beyond compare. No one knows better than we do that this mendacious, fraudulent assertion has no truth content at all. Emmanuel, who has mendaciously been given the name Jesus Christ, and you also know this very well, transmits no messages of any telepathic or otherwise similar form to the Earth humans. On the one hand, his is reborn at the present time in Europe as another personality, which you, like we, know very well, because we know his person. And on the other hand, he does not concern himself with transmitting messages and the like, or even the Talmud Emmanuel, to delusional believers or deceivers, swindlers, and liars in telepathic form, etc. What is still offered further by these liars and deceivers is actually never to be surpassed. Regarding the disgraceful impertinence and disrespect toward all spiritual levels, and particularly toward the levels Patach Li and Arahata Thersata, since these filthy liars, I simply lack other and stronger words for them, and deceivers, and truth-offending ones do not shy away from mendaciously drawing upon these levels of purity, with the dirty and maliciously deceptive and fraudulent assertion that even these would stand in contact with the liars and deceivers. A lie and deception beyond compare, for the sole fact that the spirit form levels never take up contact with material levels in order to communicate with these punishes such a fraudulent assertion. However, I do not explain this for your knowledge because you know these facts better than I do, but I only mention them for all those lunatics who are of the false assumption that a material life form could simply come into contact with any spirit form, as this is maintained by all those who have succumbed to delusional faith or who simply lie deliberately, cheat and deceive, or who are simply ill in a schizophrenic form and call themselves mediums, who can allegedly talk and communicate with the deceased, spirit forms, demons, and us extraterrestrials through trance states and channeling and similar nonsense, in order allegedly to receive messages of major importance. Yet all these assertions and machinations are nothing more than deliberate swindles, lies and deceptions, schizophrenic illnesses, self-deceptions, or delusional faith and the like. In truth, such possibilities for such connections only exist in very small amounts, and only in a spiritually very highly evolved framework, and thus only with very few humans. On the Earth, however, all those people who are equipped with such abilities are not of terrestrial origin. Rather, they migrated from foreign worlds at earlier times. The liars, swindlers, and deceivers. However, the lunatics, the delusional believers, the self-deceivers and schizophrenics, who designate and call themselves mediums and channelers or the like, and this is clarified down to the last detail, are all clearly of terrestrial origin. They are all Earth-created and Earth-born and have no connection at all to life forms of extraterrestrial origin. But just this fact misleads them to want to appear in front of and shine before their fellow human beings, as this is usual with the Earth-born people, for they often suffer from inferiority complexes and from cravings for validity. The few people on the Earth, however, who can actually maintain contacts with spirit levels or with higher, extraterrestrial human life forms are, on the one hand, clearly accompanied by higher evolutionary stages, and moreover, are of origins that are not to be found on the Earth. But the number of these people moves within a very small framework. So out of 1 billion people, there can only be found 1.03 of those who belong to this higher evolutionary stage and who are capable of such contacts.
I have already known for some time that the American pack of liars, mediums, and channelers and all other lunatics, schizophrenics, selfish ones, self-deceivers and deceivers who are out for profit and swindlers are nothing other than the first and last dog cunts of the universe, in terms of contacts with extraterrestrials and spirit levels, who know neither good character traits nor decency, respect and morality, let alone reverence before the creation and before the truth. Some time ago, I was told that a male liar or a female liar in America claims to have direct contact with Emmanuel, namely with that person, in whom the former spirit of Emmanuel is alive and reborn at the present time, who is alleged to have transmitted the Talmud Emmanuel in the English language. This is probably the biggest and dirtiest, the meanest and greasiest lie, which an Earth human could probably only contrive in an insane and schizophrenically sick mind. But I still think that I do not have to get upset because every swindler, liar, and deceiver will be held accountable sooner or later, and will have to scrape clean his self-brewed soup of lies, and with certainty in this life, which is as certain as the fact that the sun only appears during the day.
Contact Report 236.
But furthermore, a few things are still to be mentioned in relation to the faith of the Earth humans who devote themselves with great pleasure to the religions and their representatives, as well as to the alleged spiritual healers, sectarians, and alleged mystics, as well as to alleged channelers, mediums, and contactees, etc., and who become enslaved to and dependent upon such. The Earth human should not rely too much on the so-called mystics, mediums, channelers, healers, contactes, and religions, etc., and should not get involved with these because everything is built on weak legs and usually on very unreal things that, with each occasion, can collapse in on themselves like a house of cards. Therefore, the Earth human should, in good measure, rely solely on his reason and on his intellect and also on his logic. But this also means that the person of the Earth should, in good measure, rely on the real sciences of physics and astronomy, on medicine, and on the other given sciences of forms related to reality, and should turn themselves to these, even though the scientists of these areas still commit many mistakes and even though much ignorance and many errors and negations still appear with them. Nevertheless, they are real scientists who occupy themselves with the effective truth of the matter and with its laws and commands and who adhere in such a way to the given facts, which unfortunately cannot be said of the so-called esoteric scientists and their followers and believers. For typically, with few exceptions, they are all just pseudo-scientists who rarely step into the public. This pseudoscience is often only pursued by earthlings who are utterly insignificant and who suffer from feelings of inferiority and similar damages, like also the alleged mediums, channelers, and contactees, etc., who only pursue all of this in order to be able to step into the limelight of certain groups or the large public. And pseudoscience ultimately refers to everything that falls within the scope of what is designated as psi, channeling, mediums, ghosts and demons, religion, contactees, and esotericism, for these things do not exist in reality.
Contact Report 238.
I simply want to point out that so many lunatics on Earth still claim, and the longer the more that they have contact with humans or spirit forms, etc., of the Pleiades, e.g. the liar BF, then the South American or Mexican C, and the Mexican professor anyway, then also the actress M, with whom we had quite bad experiences, but also GG, who wants to maintain contact with a Pleiades commander Hatun, then PM, or as they are called, and many, many others, such as RB and the superchannel GC, etc., etc., and so on.
They all fall under the names of liars, swindlers, and fraudsters.
In the open word, I already wrote years ago that for this occult and religious sectarianism, the greatest blame must be laid on the religions and the pseudosciences of parapsychology and CSI fanatics, who breed dizziness, incomprehension, lies and deception and charlatanism to a great extent, by paving the way for all swindlers, liars, deceivers, psychopaths, schizophrenics, and deludists, by recognizing media of all kinds, spiritual healers, channelers, contactors of all shades, spirit and demon summoners, exorcists, the inspired and other sick or swindlers, liars and deceivers as real and paving the way for them. Unfortunately, there is more than enough evidence to show that through the guilt of parapsychology, which has become a malignant disease of modern times, occult and religious sectarianism has been promoted and will continue to be promoted until everything overflows and the prophecy is fulfilled that all those who seek and represent the truth will be persecuted and killed, just as it is written in the prophecy of the Talmud Emmanuel.
Unfortunately, this is the truth, and the increased worldwide appearance of the fraudulent contact liars announces the first contractions of the coming, which will result from the equally worldwide and frightening sectarianism which the sectarian houses have fundamentally cultivated in Protestant and Catholic churches.
Contact Report 250.
Whereby the so-called supernatural, of course, does not exist in any way, because everything and everything is always naturally explainable and also naturally given. The supernatural exists only in the ignorance and the incomprehension of man, because he has no knowledge about all those things which he cannot understand and cannot explain himself. Truthfully, everything so-called supernatural is absolutely natural, and thus also classified according to the corresponding laws of spirit or matter, which are able to give an explanation for everything and everyone, whereby something supernatural becomes a fact of non-existence. Everything that can be grasped and perceived, everything that can be seen and heard, and everything that can be felt, recognized, experienced, etc., is always real and natural in every case, regardless of whether it takes place on a spiritual or material level or on a medium level between spirit and matter, which is so often called the level of the supernatural, or the supernatural by parapsychologists and esoterics who do not understand it.
A true word.
Contact Report 261.
As we have explained several times before, you are also the only person on Earth who is in contact with us and with our spirit levels, which means that not only this Adrain Archon is lying and cheating about alleged contacts with us, but also all others who dare to claim to be in contact with us via channeling or telepathy, or even physically. Apart from you, no other form of life on Earth has contact with us Pleiadians, Plei-Aran, or with beings of our spiritual levels.
Contact Report 307.
Never let yourself be influenced by false teachings, not by jugglery and not by magic tricks, but learn to recognize their falsehoods, for which I will teach you, so that you may see through and recognize deceptions of this kind. Also, fortune-telling, exorcism, clairvoyance, spiritual healing in deceitful ways will be brought to you, along with many other similar things, as well as automatic writing and supposed canalization, which will be called channeling in the coming time. Their rule is only lies and deception, illusion, false doctrine, illness, and profiteering, which is why you should also protect yourself from them, as well as from the false doctrines and machinations of the religions and the sects which have arisen from them and which will continue to arise from them, in the way that murders and mass murders will arise from them in the time to come. Protect yourself from all these things every moment of your life, for lies, deceit, slander, and untruth will be more rampant in the time to come than ever before. In particular, this will be the case when the turn of the millennium puts people in excitement and confusion.
Contact Report 388.
In the USA, film companies have stolen my pictures and used them in films, as well as the name of your home planet Era. All around the world, the same thing happens through other film producers, newspapers and magazines, advertising companies, and so on. Also liars, swindlers, and cheats concerning alleged contacts with you or any invented extraterrestrials steal my photo material, the texts of our contact reports, as well as the writings and books like the Sparrowhawks, in order to present everything as their own material. None of the thieves have a guilty conscience about this, because the only thing that is important for them is that they spread their tall tales about their alleged contacts, and thus create a satisfaction for their feelings of inferiority, create a false image for themselves, and profit from the whole thing.
Yes, unfortunately, this is true. But it must be said that all those people who act in this way are abnormal and ill in their thinking, as well as in their feelings and in their actions. Some of them are deliberate deceivers, while others suffer from forms of schizophrenia, thus succumbing to delusions that make them believe that everything is real with regard to their claims that they have personal, telepathic, or alleged channeling contact with extraterrestrials, spirits, demons, with Jesus Christ, with God or Satan, with spiritual beings or with the dead, etc., and that the stolen material is their own property.
Contact Report 423.
Nevertheless, one question remains open, namely that various people have described abductions, contacts, and observations, etc. under hypnosis. Also, the so-called channeling is still current with various lunatics and cheats.
We have already talked about this earlier. These are imaginations and visions as well as effective delusions, wishful thinking and earth electromagnetic influences on the brain, etc. What is concerning channeling? There is to say that on the one hand it is absolute nonsense, and on the other hand it is delusion, but you know that.
Contact Report 424.
Everything, therefore, is nonsense and idle talk. As to the claims made by many people that they have been having contacts with extraterrestrials and would continue in such, and had and would have the opportunity to fly with them in spaceships, or claim that the possibility of channeling or telepathic contacts and so on was given.
This is absolutely true. Channeling is pure nonsense, and everyone claiming to be capable of telepathy is not capable of it. In fact, it is really as you say, for in one instance only, a true contact between a human being foreign to Earth and a human being of Earth is given, and that is between you and us.
Contact Report 511.
I want to say that for all the claims about contacts and messages with Earth foreigners, all that is left is a few hair-raisingly, stupidly conceived contact conversations with alleged messages and channeling nonsense remain. That is it then. These alleged contactees probably believe that the Earth foreign intelligences are so stupid that they only come to Earth for banal chit-chat or for feeble-minded messages in the form of religious sectarian divine teachings, as well as for spreading free sexual love, etc.
Contact Report 519.
And what about all those who in all the countries of the world have been talking about themselves, or still claim that they have been or are still in contact with some extraterrestrials, and are receiving messages from them?
These are without exception nonsensical, untruthful assertions. From our side, there is also no contact with Earth humans, neither physically nor telepathically, except with you, whereby it is to be said that Earth humans are not yet at all capable of telepathy. And as far as assertions are concerned, which refer to the so-called channeling, these are to be called absolute nonsense, because channeling is based on pure esoteric fantasy.
Contact Report 565.
But again and again there are earthly deceivers, charlatans and swindlers at work around the world who take false photographs of alleged UFOs and claim to have contact with extraterrestrials, physically, telepathically, or through channeling.
This action is nonsensical and known to us.
Either these people are egotistical, schizophrenic, or otherwise out of their minds. But how can it be different with such people than that they are somehow not sane? If the whole thing is considered, then these cheats, charlatans, and swindlers in the matter of UFOs are quite pathetic sausages whiners, who are actually to be pitied.
Contact Report 568.
The alleged messages of all media, that is to say the Cryon and Ashtar Sharan messages, are without exception nothing else but personal delusional, schizophrenic, or deliberately fraudulent machinations, because channeling, talking to the dead, etc., is absolute nonsense. The alleged contact between the Ashtar Sharan Command and Ashtar Sharan is said to have taken place by means of channeling, which corresponds to a pure schizophrenic imagination, in which a medium is supposed to receive a message.
Contact Report 710.
It is true that there are still a few lunatics and madmen who claim to be in contact with you, by channeling, etc., like the confused Penny McLean, etc., as well as the equally pathologically stupid Dr. Frey, a Canadian, who claims to be engaged to your daughter Simyase. I also have to mention the crazy guy from Belgium. I do not know his name at the moment, who reported me to the cantonal police in Zurich for allegedly stealing and kidnapping his extraterrestrial bride Asket. This man also went on a rampage in front of the restaurant in Schmidruti and insulted me as the kidnapper of his bride. Asket found this amusing, but it was still unpleasant that the cantonal police then came to the center to compulsorily draw up a protocol.
Contact Report 724.
But as far as all the alleged contact persons with equally alleged extraterrestrials are concerned, as well as again alleged materials such as Earth, precious metals, crystals, potatoes and flights into space or to other worlds, channeling with extraterrestrials and other nonsense, I know from Pleiaren investigations and from my own experience with such persons who tell such nonsense that such lying and deceiving earthlings of both sexes are running around on Earth almost en masse, spreading fantasy stories and deceiving their believers. Who and how many of all those earthlings are conscious liars and deceivers or jokers, fantasists or imaginary contactors, delusional people, or those who want to arouse public interest for themselves, make themselves important, hope for a partnership, try to get hold of a title or Nobel Prize or whatever, I do not know and do not want to judge, because that does not interest me at all. For me, only reality and truth are of profound significance and importance. But what I may now declare with certainty is that every male or female earthling is a liar and a deceiver if he or she claims to be in contact and connection in personal or telepathic form, or through channeling or otherwise, with any persons of the Pleiaren.